Welcome to Running Unicorns, sports talk that goes beyond stats and stadiums. I'm your host, Kristina Southern Townsend. Each episode, we take one word and run with it, exploring how sport connects us, shapes us, divides us, and ultimately unites us. Welcome to the club. Come, run with us. Hey, it's Kristina with Running Unicorns, and I'm so excited to have our guest, Alex Baker, with us today. Welcome, Alex.
Hi, so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, I am delighted to introduce you to Alex and invite him to share his story and how he ended up here today. Alex, do you want to briefly tell us a little bit about your background, and then we'll get into it more later?
Yeah, definitely. So I am a charity marathoner. I found my way to running in my late 30s, and so it's kind of a interesting story and went through a lot of grief to actually get to that journey, but excited to share more about that here shortly.
Amazing. Well, just to kick off with kind of a fun question, what's your walk-on song? What gets you hyped? What gets you going?
Yeah, I really am, in my early 40s. I like the emo punk era from college days. So
Yes.
Panic at the Disco has a song called High Hopes, and that's one I love bopping to before a race starts.
Amazing. Solid choice. I like a good throwback myself. So speaking of throwback, let's hear your word. It's actually a little bit of a contrast there. What's the word you chose for our episode?
Yeah, forward is my word.
I love it. And why was that? And that will probably introduce us to the rest of our conversation. But tell me why you chose the word forward and why that's meaningful to you.
Yeah, so after losing my wife in 2019 to colorectal cancer, during her 16-month battle and since then, I I never moved on. That was something that was very heavy for me to think about. It's just moving on, and that's not how I ever looked at it. It was moving forward. And so through that journey, every step along those 16 months and now 4,200 miles since I've started walking and running, it's just forward is a pace and forward is my pace.
I love that. And even that momentum of keeping going. And in our pre-chat, we talked about when you experience grief, you don't just get over something that when you have something life-changing happen like that, but there is something about moving forward and kind of running through it. And as a runner, there's a lot I've run through that's got me going through that. So I really love that. And which leads me to our next question. So for those watching on video, you've got some ketchup on your microphone. What do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I'm a charity marathoner, and through that journey, I came up with this idea to catch up to cancer. I hate ketchup. I refuse to eat it, but I hate cancer more. And that's been my battle cry as I've, raised more than $40,000 for cancer research and for a cause that's very special to me as well. So yeah, catch up to cancer. That's me.
And incredible. I love it. Well, I unfortunately I am actually a ketchup lover. I'm
Ooh,
ketchup to the core girl. Although when I lived in Utah, there's a thing called fry sauce. Have you heard of that?
no.
I'm not so sure how I feel about it, but it is a Utah tradition. It's a little ketchup and a little mayonnaise. So maybe go visit
Oh,
Utah, see if that softens your heart. I'm not sure
yeah.
about it myself. But
Ooh, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I can't do it. The barbecue sauce is even a step too far generally, but ketchup
oh,
hard out.
I'm sorry you're missing out, but I love that it has inspired you to share your message, and it is catchy, which is really cool. Well, tell us. So in a pre-conversation, you mentioned how moving forward in this chapter and stage of your life, how did you arrive at that? I've got to make some changes for myself. Tell me about that if you're willing.
Yeah, of course. So, my wife was diagnosed at 34 years old. I was 32 at the time, and really, I've never taken good care of myself. I've really struggled with my weight for most of my adult life, and especially during the the time when she was pregnant, like, oh, I need a milkshake. Well, obviously, I've got to get one too, right? And during the time of her treatment, like everything was about convenience. What can I get our 3-year-old son to eat? Chicken nuggets? Fine. Dad's going to have some too. Whatever those things are, like I need as little interruptions in my life. And so I, through that, gained a lot of weight and just kind of accepted that that was going to be my life. And after she passed, I had a realization pretty quick that my son shouldn't lose another parent because I couldn't take care of myself. That I was, he lost her at no fault of his own, no fault of her own. And he shouldn't lose me at a fault of my own. And so I started on a health journey. I joined a gym and did that for about a year pretty consistently. And then during that time was the global pandemic, really hard to go into a gym at that point. And so eventually in July of 2020, I took my first intentional step outside and said, I'm just going to start walking for my health because I need, as a widowed parent, right, 34 years old at this point, I need a little time to invest in myself. And so I started, I'm from Indianapolis area. We have a big um, race here called the Indianapolis 500. And with that, there's a half marathon. And then during the pandemic, they introduced this 500-mile challenge.
Oh, wow.
So I signed up and I was
Uh,
like, I'm gonna walk
yeah.
500 miles, maybe
Wow.
sing the song, who knows?
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna be intentional. Not like my Fitbit, my Apple Watch, what my Garmin, whatever says you did 500 miles. No, this is 500 intentional miles to invest in me.
Amazing. I and for our listeners, one of the things I like to do is identify moments of decision. And I think what I caught about what you said was you gave yourself a minute to pause and self-reflect and just start. And there's a lot of power in starting. Like you were saying, it's easy, and especially running culture, to get caught up in the gadgets, and like I love to geek out on that too, so don't get me wrong. But it is easy that something so simple to get caught up on a lot of these things. But once you have that momentum, once you start moving forward, just starting going one step in front of the other. And even the 500, sometimes it takes a big goal to just to get out the door, and it kind of seems contradictory probably to a lot of thinking, but when you have a big audacious goal, it's almost sometimes so, reaching for the stars, it's so far away that you think, even if it'll never happen, which it can, it can also be very realistic. You say, well, then I gotta get moving. If I'm gonna do it, I gotta start somewhere. So I love that you just started and set a big goal for yourself and didn't worry about the noise of what you could. And it's okay to, I mean, a cute workout outfit gets me going sometimes, so you gotta do use the incentives that help you. Um, but I also love that you mentioned your son, and especially in a moment of your own survival and emotional survival, I imagine that you did pause to think about him and think about going forward. So
Yeah.
yeah, how do you feel like that's changed your relationship as a parent?
Yeah. I found very quickly doing those miles, I was a better parent. I was calmer. I was happier. I describe it to a lot of people as just like even. I didn't have these big like emotional swings. Like found an inner peace that makes me it could be infuriating. I can imagine to some, but like I went through some insane trauma in my 30s, right? And there's I'm sure there are going to be things in my life that, reach that level, but, you know, somebody did something wrong at work, my son wouldn't clean his room, like whatever. Okay, sure. Like let's try again. Let's do better. Let's be better. Let's approach it differently, and that's okay. But through that walking even I found I was a better employee too because I was more creative. I was able to think about problems differently because I was able to show up differently, right? Because I was just moving forward and those steps and looking, inching every day a little, maybe a little better, little worse next day or 2 days, a pain here, a pain there. But
Yeah.
it was about just continuing to take those steps and move forward.
Yeah, I think, I mean, from the literal physical, benefits of mental clarity and clearing your mind, changing spaces. There's so much research that shows. I want to say, I think NPR did a. I'll have to put the name in the show notes, but I think they called it mind body something. But they showed even a 5 minute break in the middle of the day, every hour or so, can really just give you a mindset shift. And
Yeah.
so there's just so much power in getting out, taking a deep breath, getting some fresh air. And to your point, I mean, I've had loved ones affected by cancer. I'm sure a lot of our listeners have. And you don't know who and you don't know when. And so it's either you can be prepared for those moments of having some tools in your toolbox that even then are still difficult to reach for. But whether you if you start out with some good habits, then cool, you can lean on that. And even then it can still be hard to get up in the morning. But if you don't and you have something wake you up like this, then you say, "All right, I need to get those tools in my toolbox." And it sounds like you've got a full toolbox here ready to
Yeah,
go.
you could say that.
Yeah. Well, so tell me about, as you have, you know, taken your call of ketchup to cancer out to the world. One of the things I like to talk about is opening hearts, minds, doors, and wallets. What do you hope people be open to, or what have you seen people be open to, or how has your own heart and mind been open?
Yeah, so after 2 weeks of, Amanda's treatment, we got a bill for $400,000,
Oh my
um,
gosh. Yeah.
and, as a caregiver, as a parent of a young, 3-year-old kid, like, I had no idea what to do with a $400,000 bill. So the primary charities that I've worked for over, New York, Chicago, Berlin, and now London this April is St. Jude Children's Research Hospital.
Hmm.
One of the amazing things that they do is they make sure no family ever receives a bill, not
Wow.
for treatment, housing, travel, food, nothing. And the burden that we had of my wife and that $400,000 bill, I couldn't fathom how to be able to manage that, deal with that, internalize that stress about that
Yeah.
if our son is the one going through the treatments, right? You should focus on your kid beating cancer. You should not
Yes.
have to worry about the tens of thousands of dollars of medical debt coming your way. And so
Yeah.
that speaks to me a ton. They also do fantastic amount of research. When they were founded in 1962, childhood cancer survival rates was like 10%,
Wow.
and in some specific ones, we're up to 94%
Mm.
survival rate because of the work they're doing.
Wow.
So it means a ton to me. Like I said, it's my primary charity. I'm raising $26,200 for them right now. I've
Amazing.
just crossed about the $10,000 mark in this current commitment. Um, but
Woo.
yeah, thank you.
That's incredible. I appreciate you sharing that because that's so real for so many people who are already going through a major life-changing episode, situation, and then to have another life-changing bill. That's your future, and so you're already trying to regroup, and to have something like that hit at the same time is devastating to a lot of people. And so I think that hearing, someone like you, a real person out there, experiencing this is really powerful. That this is something that, thankfully charities have stepped in. And one of the things that I do love about the running community is that it's already built into so many races and events, is that they're often referred to as charity runs, or, they're people running for something. And it's cool to see those interests harmonize of people who want to get out and do something just to feel good, you can go for a run, have a, a a milestone in their training, but also change lives at the same time, where your little entry fee doesn't seem like much. And some of that does go to operations, but the part that goes to the charity and even just the awareness is huge. And so you are taking that to another level on your own of saying, "Hey, I am also running for this cause," and elevating that awareness and opportunity even more, which is huge. And so I just appreciate and applaud you for that. As you have shared your mission and going out, how have people responded? How do you set your goals? How do you celebrate also? You gotta celebrate these metrics.
Yeah, of course. So this idea of Ketchup to Cancer was inspired by our town's July 4th parade.
Oh,
Last year, my now fiance swore somebody, she didn't have her glasses on. She swore somebody was handing out ketchup packets, and we are like, man, wouldn't that be funny? If just like hand out ketchup packets. And so this past July, we actually participated in that parade and handed out 5,000 ketchup packets to
oh my
along
gosh.
the parade route and tried to inspire. On that day alone, we raised $1,100, which was wildly fantastic. And so the response, I think a lot of people are like, ketchup and
Yeah.
running, like what?
Yeah.
It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but sometimes you say it a little slower, right? Catch up to cancer, and then it clicks, and
Mhm.
it's catchy, it's clever, but it's about being able to make a difference in the world, right? And it's not
Mhm.
I'm not doing this to raise money to send me to London, right? None of these dollars that are being raised go into my pocket. They're all directly to St. Jude. That's going towards research or making sure no family has a bill. And that's what's
Mhm.
important to me is they are benefiting directly from contributions that people are making. And so
Yeah.
is as silly and cheeky, you might say as it is, it's fun. It allows me to be creative and unique and funny and get pied with ketchup. The kids love all of the opportunities to, make a mess and yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Well, there is power in cute and catchy phrases like that. There's something that it makes it memorable, it's sticky, and so there is something about that that catches people's attention. And so I think there's power in that. So as we talked about kind of so looking forward, what would you hope that if you were to share a piece of advice, let's say someone listening is going through either the thick of it, maybe they just got an announcement or got news, maybe they're recovering, they're healing, or maybe they're kind of the chapter where you are. What would your advice to your, previous self and or someone that might run into who's going through something similar? What would be something you'd want to share with them?
I think the phrase forward is a pace is it applies to so much more than running, right? Like just taking a step forward in whatever it is to achieve your goal, to approach grief, to deal with grief, to um, for me, I often talk about getting off the couch was like Mount Everest for me,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
I made that decision and came up with 1,000 excuses of why I should just continue to sit on that couch.
Mhm.
And taking that first step is what drove me to a ridiculous, uh, you know, thousands of miles and an adventure that I would not trade for the life of me. And I think, there's another phrase of how do you eat an elephant? One
Mhm.
bite at a time. And that's how to approach, I think, a lot of life's problems is, you know, you you might set those lofty goals and you might not actually get there, but you've got to at least take a step, a crawl, a tiptoe, right? To because those little changes, those little impacts make it so much easier, right? There's another anecdote that's when's the best time to plant a tree? The answer
Mhm.
was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
The second best time is today because then
Yeah.
you will have it 10 years from now. So you've got to be take those little steps. You make the call that you're terrified to make,
Yeah.
take the step out the front door, whatever that is. Forward is a pace, and just taking that step makes a huge difference.
I love that. Yeah, it's one first step and as simple as when I have loved ones who are going through something and even how I've coached myself at times is it's not even just one day at a time. Sometimes it's an hour at a time, it's a minute at a time, it's the next second, 5
Yep.
seconds, and just wherever you are, get through that and then
Yep.
get through the next part. And one of the things that I feel like people don't appreciate about distance running is, you know what? There are a lot of us who walk through the aid stations, and a lot of Olympians have done things like that. And so I'm one of those that when I first started, I did the Hal Higdon method, and it was run 10 minutes, walk a minute. And I found that mentally so much easier. And then some people now, it's about every aid station, which is about every 20 minutes or 2 miles roughly, depending on your pace and again, what your goals are. But I think that people who think about running a whole marathon, it's a lot. And so, or even a half marathon or a 5K, whatever it
Yeah,
is. Hey, guess what? You can walk. You can walk a little bit.
exactly.
And it's you still get your medal at the end. And I think a lot of people get caught up in speed and they
Mhm.
lose the vision of the journey or the pace as you mentioned. But what was interesting for me from a little physiological and psychology perspective, I found having that little 1 minute break allowed me the mental space of saying, cool, I just got to go 5 more minutes, 2 more minutes, 1 more minute. I need to go 1 more mile. And then I give myself my little mental break. And I was still walking briskly. But I think there's something about having those little breaks in the moment. And then I actually felt like I was fresher at the end because my muscles had a little bit of reprieve throughout. And again, it all depends on your training, your approach. But that's one method I found successful. And I think to your point, there's a lot in life that's like that. There's just starting and then pacing. And so depending on what pace you want, even when you're training for something, you got a tempo day, you've got a race pace day, you have an easy day. And I think social media loves action shots. And unfortunately, in a lot of sports and performance, a lot of it is boring. It's just it's getting up, it's a consistent grind, and it's not always flashy or exciting. That's where for me you pump on the music. Not everyone. Are you a music runner or are you a no music runner?
I'm a podcast runner.
Podcast. Okay.
Yeah, especially like long runs. I
Yeah.
need the conversation because I
Sure.
feel like I zone out in the music and then I focus on, oh, that strike was wrong and I could feel that in my muscle this way, and like
Yeah.
it's a good distraction to have because I tend to do all my runs by myself at
Yeah.
4 o'clock in the morning, right?
Sure.
And so it's just how can
Yes.
I be social, if you will, right? Have be part of a conversation.
Yeah, a little
Uh,
distraction.
yeah,
I have a lot of
exactly.
parasocial relationships with other podcasters, so
Mm,
it's great. I'm like, "Oh, yeah, what's Kate up to today on her pod?" And so
yeah,
so it is kind of fun. I actually remember my very first marathon, I went around again, this is, like, pre super active on social media.
sure.
I had a little recorder, and I went around, had friends all record messages for me,
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
I said, "Hey, I'm gonna be out in the desert." I was living in Utah at the time, and I'm like, "I'm going to need some support, and you guys are not all gonna be there." And so I had friends record a little message to me, and I didn't listen to any of them before I went, and
That's
then I
awesome.
compiled them all on my little iPod, and
Yeah,
I had them all on their little tracks, and it was
that's really
so
fun.
fun. Yeah, it was really cool, and it was like, "Go, Christina, pretend someone's chasing you," and just the goofiest stuff, but it
Yeah,
really brightened my mood, and
yep,
it was just, the right things hit at the right time, and there's something about whether it is a distraction or I got cheerleaders for me when they weren't gonna be there, and if you've heard the term, Gretchen Rubin talks about happiness bullying.
okay,
Where you kind of, uh, b do something in a provoking way to encourage
yeah,
happiness, and so I kind of probably
that's
happiness
awesome.
bullied my friends into creating uplifting messages for me, and it was really fun, and I came back and told them all how much it meant to me, but whatever you gotta do to get yourself out there, and again, whether it's coaching yourself, getting a good playlist, getting some podcasts, maybe it is just unplugging and listening to the silence or chirping. I mean, I'm here for all of it. Depends on the day. Well, so kind of going forward, speaking of, what would you hope our listeners would take away from our conversation? What would you hope that they would think about as let's say they're tackling something in their life. Maybe they're not a runner, or maybe they are, or maybe they're going through something, whether it's grief or an unexpected, news or announcement. What would you hope that yeah, our listeners would take away, or your invitation for them to think about?
Yeah, I think obviously I mentioned forward as a pace. I think the other mantra that I like to live by is you never know who's on your sidelines, and obviously in running you have physical sidelines on social media, right? We don't know how many people are watching what we're doing, what we're sharing, what we're posting. During Amanda's treatment, we had hundreds of people show up in ways that I never would have expected from so many of them, whether they were sending us food, sending us cards, saying just a hey, thinking about you today, whatever that is, people will show up for you. And sometimes you have to be vulnerable to just ask for help. Like, hey, I need some love today. I need support. I need somebody today, and I I think that we often, especially on social, everything rose-colored glasses, right? Everything's perfect, everything's fantastic, and I try to personally be a little more vulnerable on mine. Like, one of my pinned posts was my horrendous, Berlin Marathon, a photograph taken about 10 seconds after I threw up on the race course, and just but what that post showed me was hundreds of people that are just paying attention to this mission that I have that had no idea who they were. We've never interacted. They just like, they saw it and wanted to share some love. And so I think especially when you're grieving, when you feel lonely, there are people on your sidelines out there for you. And sometimes it really is just as simple as say, help.
Yeah, I love that. I appreciate you mentioning, there are people in your corner that you might not know are there, and sometimes it does take flagging it for someone and saying, "Hey, I need some support." And I think it's so refreshing when people can be open about that, because it gives other people an opportunity to show up. And I think so often, yes, we all have our own lives and things that we're doing, but there is power in asking, and there's power in showing up for someone else. And I would like to think most people are willing to show up for someone if they only knew how. And sometimes it is getting specific, and it's saying, "You know what? I love to go for a walk with someone. Actually, I don't have a clear ask, but just, like, knowing that you're thinking about me is helpful." Or maybe it's, "I would really love a burrito," you know, and just, whatever it is, get specific, get clear, or maybe even just say, "I don't actually even know what I need or want, but I wanna put it out there that, like, I'm going through something." And I've had a few friends that I have on kinda speed dial, or I've told them who've been going through something where I've said, "Hey, please let me be your hotline. I don't care if it's 3, I don't care if it's 1 AM." And I'm not always the best at checking my messages, but I'm like, "Text me SOS or call me and be like, 'Christina, answer the phone. I need to talk.'" And just having a few people that are kinda on my short list, and people that I mean, I'm happy to be anyone's short list, but I think it is helpful to have a few specific people in your corner or your hotline, or to just put it out there, because you don't know when those moments are gonna hit. You don't know when waves of grief are gonna happen. You don't know when, something's gonna kinda catch you off guard. And so just having a few of those tools ready, like you mentioned. Don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to say something. Put on your shoes, just start moving and moving forward. So
Yeah,
that's
one thing that was described to me shortly after Amanda's passing was this idea of grief is a box, a ball, and a button. Do you know
Hmm.
this reference?
No, tell me.
Okay,
Yeah.
so after you have this traumatic event, this um, moment of grief, this ball is inside this box, and it is just pressing on the button, right? And
Mm,
it is there all of the time. As time passes, the ball gets smaller and it starts bouncing around the box. And sometimes it bangs hard on the button.
mhm,
But as time passes, it, you know, it doesn't always, it just misses the button, right? And eventually gets there. And so in our house we call them button days. And
mm,
so I'm having a button day today.
yeah,
Some part of grief, somebody said something happened in my life today that is just, it's weighing heavy on me, and maybe I wanna talk about it, maybe I just want a hug. And but that's at least a way we use to have that conversation of
mm.
today's a button day.
I love that. I think I think it's good to have language around that, because sometimes, like we are saying, in some moments you don't know what to say, but something like, "I'm having a button day," or whatever it is, can be really crucial in articulating what you can't articulate. When the words fail us, sometimes something is better than nothing. But if you have the language to help you be that tool, I think that's powerful. Well, Alex, this has been an absolute honor to get to visit with you and hear about your mission, how you're moving forward, and your hate for ketchup, but more for cancer, and just how much that does impact so many people, and whether it's us or someone we know or in our community, it affects everyone. And so I appreciate that you have taken your experience and you're doing something with it. You're moving forward and you're spreading awareness, and just grateful for you putting that out in the world.
Thank you. I'm very, very glad to be here and be able to share. And if you'd like to follow my journey and learn more about it, I'm on Instagram at ketchup to cancer, to cancer. If my story has moved you and you want to help support others, ketchuptocancer.com takes you directly to more about my story, as well as a link to my $10,000 fundraiser for the London Marathon. And hopefully we can catch up together.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Alex. Well, I look forward to catching up with you and continue to follow your journey.
Thank you very much.
That's a wrap. Thank you for joining us. And now it's your turn. We invite you to continue the conversation and run with it to your circles of influence. From the boardroom to the kitchen table, share how sport and play can connect, unite us, and ultimately be a positive impact in our communities. Life is short, and we're so grateful you spent this precious time with us. Go outside, go for a walk, sign up for that 5K, get tickets to something, get sweaty, and have fun. We hope you'll be back soon. And in the meantime, join us on Strava, social media, or visit runningunicorns.com to learn more. Thanks so much for being here. And until next time, keep running. If you had a good time today, tell us in the comments what you enjoyed and what you hope to hear more of. You're also welcome to reach us via email, team@runningunicorns.com, with a message or voice note. This has been a production of Southtown Communications.